We are going to start with the first paper by Christine Novi and the first talk, who will talk about assembling a we, tracing the history of my doctoral research to the people who helped shape it. Again, after the talk, there will be chances for questions. So please write down your questions if you have any, or comments or ideas, and then we can talk about this after all papers are finished. Christine?
So Niels, I'm going to put my slides up. I'll share, use the share the screen mode.
Yes,
okay.
super.
Okay, here we go. So my name is Christine, and as Niels mentioned, and as you saw in the program, my talk is called Assembling a We, Tracing the History of My Doctoral Research to the People Who Helped Shape It. And for your interest, I'm in Ottawa in Canada. So my research is about relational care, and it's also about creating a more inclusive research environment for people who find verbal communication difficult. Today, I'm not going to talk about my research, however. I am going to be talking about two people, Antonella and Maria, who influenced my ideas, and I'll be describing their contributions. But first, I will briefly explain my interest in communication. I am a drama therapist by profession. In drama therapy, we take a multimodal approach to communication. As you see in this slide, the body, images, props, and objects are used to give outward expression to inwardly held feelings and experiences. They provide an alternative language and a way to speak from inside. In this slide, I introduced Maria. Maria was one of the first people I worked alongside. I was volunteering at a day program for people living with dementia. At that time, I had very little experience of dementia, but I wondered if the media from drama therapy might provide a bridge to communication. So I asked Maria if she had a story from her life that she would like to share. Eventually, we dramatized her story at the day program. It was an incredible story about her childhood experience, her childhood escape from Nazi-occupied Amsterdam during the famine of 1944 to 1945. In this video clip, Maria is being asked about her story and our dramatization of it.
I see there's your country.
Ja, dat is from Amsterdam. Ja.
And what about your the clogs?
Ja, and that here. And that kwam erbij because the girls have in Holland there. Die hebben die zingen, you know, and so on. And we didn't have that, you know. So that was really funny to do with that.
And I believe we made that bread as well.
Yeah, that's ontbijt cook.
Okay. It's really delicious.
Yeah, and then here is dit from the other right, and then this one is actually where we all were into that.
Okay.
And that is because you're gonna go down.
As you saw in the video clip, Maria was living with expressive aphasia, which causes severe word-finding difficulties. When I first met Maria, I could tell from the tone of her voice, her facial expressions, and her gestures that she had an important story to tell. But to begin with, I could understand very little. So I began to bring in images of what I thought she meant. For example, Maria mentioned a boat that she had traveled in. None of the images I brought were a perfect match, but she used them to differentiate the boat in her story. It was a canal barge carrying coal under which the children had hidden. We worked with sound in a similar way. When I played the sound of a diesel engine, for example, Maria told me that the volume was too high, that the boat had traveled very quietly to avoid attention. In this way, we pieced together the details of her story. So what I learned from Maria was that when words fail, images and sounds can offer a means to negotiate meaning and work collaboratively. I met and worked alongside Antonella 3 years later. By then, the lessons learned from Maria were fully integrated into the life story performance process. Like Maria, Antonella had lost most of her English language communication skills. So we began by looking at photos together, provided by her family. Once her story was complete, I asked her if she would like to share it with members of her family and the day program community. She said she would. For the performance of her story, we projected an image of her hometown in Italy onto a large screen as a backdrop. We passed around produce that her family would have grown on the farm where she was raised. Antonella's husband played some traditional Italian tunes on his accordion, and we reenacted scenes from her story. Antonella's story was about leaving Italy to begin a new life in Canada. In Canada, she met and married a compatriot and took on the role of mother to his newborn son. This photo was taken towards the end of the performance. Antonella is seated beside her now adult son, Marco. I had just read aloud the final words from her story. When I took Marco, he was a baby. I took care of the baby. As I did so, my colleague approached Antonella, cradling a lifelike baby doll wrapped in a soft blue blanket. As Antonella received the doll into her arms, she spontaneously enrolled as her younger self and became an actor in her story. In this role, she was able to show rather than to tell how she took care of the baby. Antonella's story had been just a few sentences long. In the performance of her story, what I learned from her was that objects like the doll prop make it easier to communicate the richness of life experiences, not through words, but through actions. Overall, Maria and Antonella showed me the kind of support they needed to participate with others on a more equal footing. In research, this alternative approach to communication can be used to give a voice to people who are marginalized, to validate existing communication abilities, to assist in the negotiation of meaning when verbal communication is difficult, and to open up new channels for dialogue. In my own research, I will be using some of these methods to explore relational care. If you would like to learn more about the life story performance process, I've written 2 articles. You can read about Maria's story and Antonella's story. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Christine, for your story and the way you integrated performances and of sounds, of objects, and also probably also of you as being in a role in your work. I think it was an interesting story to listen to. So please, to everyone in the audience, keep your questions. But I already have a question, and if you have any, keep them for the end, so we can have a lively discussion after all presentations are finished. Thank you, Christine. Now, next on will be Mirte Tolen and Agnieszka Barbara Kolasinska. Their paper is titled Co-creating Design Opportunities for Social Technology. Oops, and now my screen. Co-creating design opportunities for social technology in the context of dementia. Mirte or Agnieszka, are you doing the presentation? I think you're still on mute.
Do you hear me?
Yes, hi Mirte. Okay, yes, we can hear you. Okay, I can see you've uploaded your presentation and you're ready to go.
Yes, sorry, I was just figuring out how this was working. Hi everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Mirte Tolen and I will present the co-creating design opportunities for social technology in the context of dementia. Oh, how is this working? Yes. So this me, I am Mirte, and I'm here today to talk about one of my studies in which, together with my collaborators, we aimed at co-creating design opportunities for social technology in dementia care. First of all, I want to give a short introduction. One of the challenges associated with dementia is a compromised ability to connect with others. Unfortunately, because of that, too often people with dementia are treated as if they have lost who they are. As shown in literature, respecting one's personhood means that we must move into their world and explore how the maintenance of personhood and social connections shaping this personhood can be supported. Many researchers have emphasized the value of inclusive design practices, for example, participatory design, which may possibly be familiar for some people here, to better understand how to support the maintenance of personhood and how design and technology can enrich social interactions shaping this personhood. Technology is hereby seen as an effective vehicle for people contributing to their social health and independence. However, what we saw is that its use and applicability among this group is still remain scarce. Therefore, it is, in our opinion, necessary to consider the utility of technology appropriately to the progression and changing needs of dementia, of people with dementia. This study I'm presenting today is part of a larger ongoing research called Dementia Dynamics in Design. The study we present today at this stage the aim was to build a comprehensive understanding of social technologies experienced by people with dementia, and to learn how their social participation can be hindered or facilitated by social technologies, and ultimately find new design opportunities. As some of you may know, involving people with dementia in research can be challenging, and therefore we wanted to approach them from a collaborative design perspective, and therefore we chose we created 3 co-creative methods to encourage people with dementia to share their daily experience regarding social interactions and existing technologies. And we personalize these tools based on insights from previously conducted interviews as part of the larger ongoing research project. In this study, we involved 4 couples with dementia and their partner who still live at home and had previous experience with using technology, either independently or with some support. We held the co-creation session at people's homes, and after a brief conversation and introduction, I guided them through the generative tools, and which helped me to stimulate dialogue with them. First, the first tool I used was a social activity and leisure time canvas. This is a modified canvas to gain insights into the social activities participants still pursue, would like to pursue more often, and can no longer pursue together with their significant others. The second tool we used was a technology mapping canvas. We use this canvas to explore the context of use of current social technologies and the social and environmental arrangements in which these are situated. After this session, we used an experience diary. We handed this over to the participants, and they used this for 2 weeks. And the cards of the diary consists of cards divided over 3 categories: daily life, social life, and technology usage. And we personalized these cards based on the findings from previous study. And the participants were allowed to choose whether to answer on the question cards via camera, notebook, or an audio recording. The results, the data analysis we did via a thematic analysis, and we found 4 teams which we discussed with 4 other qualified researchers, and I will explain these in the following slides. We started our inquiry with discovering the most commonly expressed needs, and the first one is that we found that the components influencing the perception of individual relationships as fulfilling. And this one is divided in 3 parts. It's like the need for close interactions and staying in touch with family is being indicated as a very important aspect of satisfactory social life. The social presence expressed as participation in shared activities or being involved in local communities and having various social ties appears also to be very important. And the most desirable way of connecting was via mundane conversations. The second part is about maintaining agentic opportunities. Like being an active decision maker is like very important, what we found in people with dementia. And the final is that our participants express the desire to stay engaged in shared activities. And this activities like goes beyond, went beyond solely verbal expressions. For example, physical activities are also, for example, swimming with friends are also very important for them. We also found internal and external barriers in engaging in social interactions, environmental conditions, location to a certain meeting spot, or the presence or lack of willingness of others to engage in social interactions are the main external barriers. And the internal barriers we found are fear of decreasing social competence and perceived loss of skills. And because participants confess being worried about their forgetfulness, losing track of the conversation, and possible awkward behavior, which took them stepping back from the interaction with others. The third theme we found is that they already use strategies to maintain social interactions, and we found the importance of tailor-made assistance for the promotion of activity and independence. And the second strategy we found is that incorporating social time in the daily routine that helps them to interact with social in social interactions. And the third one is about self-management strategies, which people already use by themselves, like using physical aids or mnemonic strategies to circumvent memory challenges. And the fourth theme we found is about the difficulties in using existing technology. It seems to be difficult for people with dementia to keep up with new technologies, especially rapidly changing devices, new functionalities and interfaces that are not always intuitive or clear to use. And the third part of the element is the pressure of time, for example, with online banking, which makes them very, which is sometimes stressful for them. And the main determinants of successful adoption and usage of technology is the placement of the technology. It's what we found. And last but not least, we found that the role of initiative is particularly important in maintaining social interactions. We found that the decreasing self-confidence in social situations leads to less frequent initiations of interactions. And as a consequence, we found that this leads to gradually withdrawal. And the more they withdraw, the fewer opportunities they have to challenge themselves. And based on these findings, we were able to define design considerations. For example, to enhance people's self-confidence, in our opinion, it's worthwhile looking at what role technology, of the design of technology, can play, especially in circumventing internal and external barriers. For example, technology can support anchoring conversation through physical prompts, or it can even trigger social intentions asynchronously. Another thing we found is about the agency. It's like agency is created and maintained through the dynamic between individuals and like individuals with dementia and those without. Like the social element is there very important, and learning from already implemented strategies and integrating them into the design can help designers to support people with dementia, and especially the agentic abilities. And we also found the properties of technology that can contribute to whether it is used or not. For example, bringing the current mechanisms of use to the center of design can better support people with dementia in performing social interactions. And what we think is very important is that these differ per person, which makes it necessary to integrate a certain level of flexibility in the design. And to conclude, I think I'm already over 10 minutes, but I'm almost there. I would like to quickly point to the future directions for research. Since the presence of others and even strangers and the sense of connectedness to the community are also appreciated by people with dementia. In our opinion, design research should also reflect on how to engage local communities in supporting them to stay active and involved in socially. And we also see opportunities in incorporating shared activities that go beyond verbal expressions, which was also mentioned in the previous presentation, as a way to facilitate engagement. And to conclude is that we also have seen in many cases making social interactions part of daily routine can also help people to compensate for their decreased initiative and help to stimulate it. And to finalize this presentation, or to conclude this presentation, is that based on these findings, we held a brainstorm session and an expert evaluation, and we designed a final prototype with the goal to have a communication facilitator as an external memory aid, but also including the other findings of this study. And we currently have a final prototype, and the field study is currently performed. So that's, I'm very proud to share that as well. And for now, I would like to thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end.
Thank you, Mirte. This was a rich story, I think, as it brought a lot of. I mean, I also like that you ended with a lot of other opportunities for other people to engage in and to research. This means that, of course, this is a very diverse, complex, and multi-layered issue. I would say I was looking for the correct word, but I think that makes it even more interesting as it makes it so complex. That and thank you and your colleagues for trying to untangle part of that complexity in this presentation. Again, we are going to wait for questions after all papers are finished. And also, Mirte, do not worry about being over time. I think we have enough time in this session, even if you take some more minutes, so that wasn't a problem. The next paper that is on will deal with the challenges of creating design requirements for products for people with dementia. This paper is presented by Rita Maldonado Branco and is also co-authored by Lieke Leenert, Andrea Wilkinson, and myself.
Hello, everyone. Good evening or good morning. Niels already presented the authors of this paper. We are based at Dementia Lab Research and Interactions Research Unit at the Lucas School of Arts in Belgium. Our paper represents the initial research phase of an European project that is called Interreg Northwest Europe Certification D, in which we are obviously participating. This project is composed by several partners from academia, healthcare, industry, and SMEs from 5 different countries. The aim of this project is to enable people with dementia to live longer at home and to improve their quality of life through designing products, through designing better products, and also through supporting people with dementia in their network to select products. And in order to do this, the project is working on the creation of a certification quality mark for products with people with dementia, which also includes the whole development of the whole certification procedure. To create a certification quality mark, we need requirements. So we need design requirements, but this raises the question, what does it mean to design well for people with dementia? And what can be considered good design for people with dementia? Although we found this project highly pertinent and therefore engaged in it, there were and there are still many challenges and uncertainties regarding the complexity of this goal of creating a certification mark. So these challenges are related to the complexity inherent to dementia, not only because it affects people in different ways, but also because it evolves over time. Meaning that, for example, a product that is perceived as being extremely useful and relevant for a person today might become difficult to use in 6 months' time, for instance. Also, it is very difficult to predict and to accommodate the diversity of people's needs as well as their wants and expectations. For instance, leisure products such as a game might be engaging and challenging enough for a person and might be perceived as too easy, even boring, or sometimes even childish for another person. Another big challenge is related to the wide range of products that are being included in this project. The consortium grouped products in 3 main categories related to their purpose. So enabling products, leisure products, and safety and security products. This covers not only a wide range of functionalities and uses, but also different technologies, for instance, from digital to analog, as well as different situations of use. So like products to be used individually or products to be used collectively, and so on. Another challenge is related to the definition of requirements that accommodate these different contexts and use situations. This also reflects our concern that requirements might be seen as recipes, since one-size-fits-all approaches and products often fail to address the individual preferences and needs and the different contexts of use. For instance, if the aesthetics of a product is many times seen as a secondary requirement let's say for a safety product, such as a monitor, a device to monitor falls that is to be used at home. However, if this device is to be taken outside, to be carried by the person, eventually that is visible to others, like a GPS tracker, for instance, then aesthetics comes to play a bigger role in the design of such product to make it more dignifying. But then what makes a product dignifying is also highly subjective and personal and thus hard to define. So to start addressing these challenges, an expert-led study was set up. Here is also important to say that although the consortium is very diverse, all partners have a common view towards making life better for people with dementia and are advocates of human-centered and participatory approaches. Also, that this certification should not be concerned should not only be concerned with the functional aspects of products, but also with the quality of their use and how they support quality of life. So this expert-led study started with a preliminary workshop with the consortium members to reflect on the evaluation of very different products and on the creation of requirements taking all of these different products into account. The insights that were gathered during this workshop, and then also a literature study on quality of life of people with dementia, also a literature review on the several recommendations on several products that were already made. They made a basis to develop an initial set of 3 lists of requirements. So it was made a list for each product category, enabling leisure and safety and security. These lists were then used to start a Delphi study, which is a method that collates expertise in order to generate consensus. And this study involved 22 experts outside the consortiums from academia, industry, and care. And these experts were asked to edit and to comment on these initial lists of requirements over at least 2 rounds of participation. Finally, in order to engage people with dementia and their carers in the study, 4 living labs were set up, one in Belgium, France, Germany, and Netherlands. And in these living labs, people with dementia and their carers are being involved in refining and validating these lists. The lists that resulted from the Delphi study through the evaluation of products in their real life environments. Now we will present an overview of the leisure list. Leisure is the product category that our team is responsible for. We cannot present the full list as it is still under embargo. And it's also important to note that this list was created to serve as a reference to develop scripts for product evaluation, as well as a guide of considerations to support designers and manufacturers or companies to design for people with dementia. So what I want to make clear is that this is still not a script for product evaluation. So this list is divided in 3 parts. Part A is about the product. So it regards the definition and description of the product that to be evaluated, the intentions for the product, and characterizes the context and situations of use. So when developing a product, a company defines the purpose of the product, where it can be used, for instance, if it's at home or outdoors, how it's supposed to be used individually, collectively, etc. Also in this part, the theme before use was included to consider features that might be important before using the product, such as the packaging, the setup, also the instructions to guide the setup of the product, the possibility of personalization as well, which also aims to reflect the idea of individualized care from person-centered dementia care. And also here we distinguished as well the setup that is needed in the first time that the product is used, and the initiation or preparation that some products might need every time they are being used. Part B refers to the product experience. and it regards functional and more pragmatic aspects, such as the theme of utility and usability, or the theme of daily use and maintenance that concerns non-instrumental activities that are also important, such as hygiene, like if the product can be washed and how to do it, and or how can it be stored, or if it can be repaired if necessary, etc. However, part B goes beyond these functional and pragmatic qualities of products within the theme of quality of use, making space for the qualities related to pleasure, to enjoyment, not only for the person with dementia, but also for all the parties involved. The psychological needs of people with dementia were taken into account to formulate this part B. Both in the more pragmatic themes that were framed in a way to support comfort, inclusion, and autonomy of people with dementia, but especially in this theme of quality of use, through the inclusion of a sub-theme that specifically encourages to reflect and consider the psychological needs of people with dementia, such as supporting control, promoting social engagement, or stimulating self-expression. Finally, part C regards the ethical issues and other considerations that go beyond the direct interactions with a product. So the theme ethics and risks considers not only the privacy and safety concerns, but also other concerns related to how the product ensures respect and dignity for the person, or how products are being marketed. Besides this, part C also includes concerns related to the involvement of people with dementia and other relevant stakeholders, such as informal carers and dementia care experts in the design process. The cost and access to products and sustainability aspects related to prolonging the lifetime of the product, material choice, or product disposal are also included in part C. So to summarize, the actions undertaken to overcome the main challenges and uncertainties that we had regarding this project included placing people with dementia and their networks and their quality of life central in the project, through the creation of living labs and through embedding person-centered dementia care values and practices in the project's actions. It also included rethinking and reframing design requirements more as a consideration, incorporating both general and as well as product-specific aspects, and starting from person-centered dementia care and quality of life of people with dementia to create these lists of considerations. Also, there was this strong engagement of experts from different sectors, not only those in the consortium, but beyond the consortium, from care, industry leaders, researchers, designers, through their involvement in the preliminary workshop and on the Delphi study. As a point for reflection, and although this is still an ongoing process, the activities that are being undertaken in the living labs with people with dementia and their families to evaluate these lists only indicates that there will be very few minor changes. This suggests that the knowledge of the consortium and the other experts that were involved in the Delphi study was maybe strong enough to come up with a list that is well defined and well described. So we question, is this meaning that the knowledge in design and dementia is maturing? Also, although the authors of this paper are all strong advocates of participation and involvement of people with dementia and their carers in the design process, this also made us reflect what is the value of the involvement of people with dementia in this type of study if it does not contribute much to its results. And to this one, we concluded that the involvement should not be facilitated simply as a means to generate better results, but it can also come out of purely ideological motivations, meaning that it is our duty as researchers and designers to involve people with dementia in processes that might have the potential to impact their current situation or their future. To conclude, The next steps in the Certification D project include the selection of a first wave of SMEs to be involved in the first evaluation and certification phase. Also, there are still several challenges, so it is still being discussed how to combine the role of the certification body and the role of the design advisor, as it can raise a conflict of interest. So you cannot be the one advising how to improve a product and then later not giving them a certification. But companies need this design advice. So how we can do it is still being discussed. Also, we are still in the process of defining what the certification mark can and will promise to customers. Yeah, when we think of certification of products, that usually is black or white or yes or no promise. So how can we make sure that the promise that the certification makes is not too high, because we cannot indicate that a product will definitely work for your family member with dementia. That would be too much of a promise to make. Maybe we can make a promise that the certification label marks that the product has been designed in the best possible way to work for people with dementia. However, this might not be enough for those buying a certified product. And related to this, we might need not one certification mark, but multiple in order to cater for the complexity of dementia. Maybe we might have a series of labels that are focused on abilities, where one label indicates that something will work, for instance, for someone with aphasia, or it will be linked to psychological needs of people with dementia, like the fact that the design is well suited for a specific type of interaction. So this is all still being discussed and is still undefined, and will hopefully be defined in the coming months. That's it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rita, for your talk. I must also indicate that this is work that has not only been done in Belgium, but of course it's a consortium of which that, for example, the people from the Technical University of Eindhoven, amongst others Mirte, but also Rens are part of that, have also been part of this consortium and the work we have presented here. And then we move to our final presentation of this session. And that's, I'm now taking my notes, this final presentation, and then I lost my notes. This final presentation is done by Anna-Christina Ratsep about in Estonian museums and people with dementia, experiences and challenges. So Anna-Christina, the floor is yours. You can give your lecture, your talk, and then afterwards we have time for questions on all 4 talks, papers and presentations.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I am a PhD first-year student in University of Tartu in Estonia. And this event I am participating today is my first conference, so I'm very happy to be part of it. And I will talk about my first research, which I conducted last year. And I will present the results which I found. Okay, so my research is conducted in Estonia, which is a country on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea. And it is the smallest country of the 3 Baltic countries. The other ones are Latvia and Lithuania. And Estonia has a population of 1.3 million people. So it is a very small country. And where did I get the inspiration for my research? It was during my master degree studies, when I studied museum studies in University of Glasgow in Scotland. During my studies, I was an intern in a Kelvingrove Art Museum. And during my internship, I saw how museum workers collaborate with people with dementia and how effectively these museum programs are organized. So this experience was very inspirational for me, and this was the reason why I started to research this topic in my own home country. And the methodology of my research is qualitative. My background is ethnology, and therefore I have used participant observation and qualitative interviews. Altogether, I conducted 13 interviews, and my research questions were firstly, what are Estonian museum professionals' experiences with people with dementia and their current training possibilities? So I am interested what kind of experience they already have and what are the training possibilities in order to develop new skills to work with people with dementia and their caregivers. My second research question is, who are potential partners for being able to work with this audience group? So who can be the partners for Estonian museums to develop programs for people with dementia? And my third question is, what are the challenges museums face in aiming to develop programs for people with dementia and their caregivers, considering Estonian cultural policies and museums' financial resources? So who were my informants? I made interviews in different museums in north and south of Estonia, and I included ethnographical museums, historical, and also art museums. So I went to Estonian National Museum, Estonian History Museum, Estonian Art Museum, and Tartu Art Museum. I also spoke to occupational therapists working in Diaconical Hospital and also Villa Benita Hospice in order to get the perspective of therapists. And I also made 2 interviews with ministry experts, one with Ministry of Social Affairs and another one in the Estonian Cultural Ministry with the Estonian Museum Advisor. And my research is based on new museology, which emphasize on the museum's social value for communities they serve. So museums in the 21st century are not only places to collect and store objects, but they have an important value for people's well-being and health. And my study is based on different researches conducted previously in the health and well-being field. And here on this slide, I have brought out one graphics, which was very inspirational for my study. And it is by Paul Kamick, who emphasizes on the role of museums who should partner with healthcare and social care institutions in order to develop new services for different audience groups, including people with dementia and their caregivers. So this is the graphic which I used to conduct my research, and it is by Paul Kamick. Okay, the next slide is about Estonian dementia. And according to Alzheimer Europe social support systems statistics in Estonia, there is a no known number of persons with dementia because the disease is underdiagnosed, and also there are no epidemiological studies conducted. And therefore it is very hard to say how many people have the diagnosis, but the estimated number is around 22,000 people. Also, dementia is not mentioned in any national acts, but there is NGO Living with Dementia, which is an organizing support groups and memory cafe events for people with dementia and their caregivers. And I have also been myself a volunteer in this group, and one of the initiators of Memory Cafe events. And according to Alzheimer Europe, the services provided in Estonia to people with dementia and their carers are not adequate. And also the ability of local governments to organize and provide services is very different depending on the area. For example, in rural areas, it is less developed than in bigger cities. And in the last couple of years, diagnosing dementia has improved a lot, but still the development of services has not improved as quickly. And also my research is part of this development, because designing a museum program is part of cultural service, which can help to improve the well-being of dementia and their carers. And here I have presented the results of my study. First of all, I found out that despite the lack of experience working with people with dementia, Estonian museum professionals are very much interested in engaging this audience group in the future. They believe that the relationship is reciprocal in between museum's social value and also PVD, whose social and cognitive well-being will be enhanced in the programs. Second, oh yes, this is the Kumu Art Museum, which is the largest museums in Estonia and also one of the largest art museums in Northern Europe, where I conducted my participatory observation fieldwork. And I participated in Re-Encounters museum program delivered from 2018 until 2019 by the Department of Education. And the design of this museum program is based on the museum design of Museum of Modern Art in New York. So the methodology is taken from the dementia program, which was developed in Museum of Modern Art. And Re-Encounters museum program was organized in collaboration with NGO Life with Dementia. And I was also a volunteer in Kumu Museum, and I helped to initiate this program. And we started with this program in 2017, and presently it is part of the museum's permanent museum programs. So it is delivered every month, on every once per month, every Saturday. And the design of the program can be divided into three. There is first the introduction, secondly, art gallery excursion, and thirdly, hands-on workshops in the education session. And what is the value of the Kumu program? Interviews conducted with Kumu museum specialists said that the main value is the social value. Communicating and creating new connections is very important for people with dementia, so they can express themselves and meet other people who share similar difficulties as they are. Secondly, cognitive skills are enhanced during the Kumu program sessions, because when people do handicrafts, they revitalize their memories and also create new memories in the museum space. And thirdly, hand motorics is very important during the sessions, because keeping active their hand motorics, they help to stop the progression of the disease. So here is a photograph which I made during the introduction session, where the people are gathering and getting to know each other. It is very important that the atmosphere is very comfortable and cozy, so people feel that they are open and they feel good to talk to each other. Afterwards, we went to an excursion in the art gallery, where the museum education specialist introduced different paintings and asked the opinions and memories of people with dementia and their carers, so they could share their own thoughts. And then we did some activities in the education space. So depending on the session, different materials are used. On this picture, you can see people who are using watercolors to paint their own personal family members. And here is a photograph which I made of a memory tree. So the participants used clay in order to sculpt their own memory tree, where they put their own stories. And this was very liberating and emotional for them, because on top of the tree, they put different personal memories which they had. And one of the methods we have used is collage. Here you can see a painting taken from the art gallery, and different pieces have been added on top of the painting by people with dementia, so they can use their creativity and change the art collections based on their own vision and inspiration. Sometimes artworks can also be abstract. So here is a picture of one of the abstract art which we have done. And here I have brought out another finding from my research, which is that there is a great need for new resources in order for programs to be created for people with dementia. So above all, it is very important that museum workers have the knowledge how to work with people with dementia. And for this, training possibilities on-site and off-site museums should be developed for the Estonian museum workers. My research also suggests that there is a need for a more interdisciplinary approach, as potential partners for future program development should include also expert groups from university as well as from the caregiving field, such as psychologists, occupational therapists, and also dementia support personnel. My research also suggests that Estonian cultural policy documents lack the aim and definition of the Estonian museum's social value, as well as a clear objectives how to achieve this social role. And there are also many financial challenges. My study identified the lack of knowledge of Estonian museum workers where to apply for financial resources for the implementation of new programs. And this suggests that cultural policymakers should recognize more the value of Estonian museums, aiding the well-being of its community, and also to develop new funding opportunities and inform the museum workers about the financial resources for the implementation of these new programs. And this is it. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions which you have.
Thank you, Anna Christina, for your talk. And again, don't worry about the technical difficulties. My colleague just said it was maybe even easier to listen to. You are not distracted, so to say, by images. You're just listening to your voice. So don't worry. I think everyone was able to understand and to listen to what you were saying. Now we're getting into the Q&A. And for this Q&A, you can address questions for the speakers as a whole, as a group, or you can address individual speakers as well. The idea is that you type in your questions in the chat, and I will then announce whose question we will try to tackle, whose question we will deal with at that point. If you are uncomfortable in in talking yourself or taking over the camera and the microphone, then I'll ask the question to the participants. So now it's time, if you have any questions, to type in your questions in the chat, and we will be able to deal with them. I know I have at least some questions, but please do not hesitate to ask yours. And maybe we could start off. Oh, Rens, you want to start? Okay, thank you. Well, then I'll refrain from starting. Thank you, Rens, taking the lead and asking a question. Yes, go ahead, Rens.
Hi, Niels. Thank you for giving me the floor. I think also because of the presentations, you have to think about it a little bit, right? So maybe it takes a bit of time to formulate the question. But I was thinking of maybe asking a more general question to Rita. Thank you for the project. I was also involved, of course, and I was wondering if you see these other three presentations, and you have more kind of an overarching picture you're building up in the paper of how we could look at design work, and I was wondering if you would, from that perspective, how would you look at the other works that you saw today? So what are things that they could maybe learn from that list that you gave, or how would you position that work in context of that? And you can maybe choose any of the talks where you think there is a match.
Hi, Rens. Thanks for your question. I think it's a very interesting one. I was not expecting that. Yeah, I think obviously it's very easy to, in all presentations and in all works that are obviously related to design and people with dementia, to draw some things and to identify some of the things that we have gone through in building that list. I was thinking, for instance, in the first talk of Christine, she was talking about the use of sounds and images to help in communication. Also, the use of props, so to use objects as vehicles for communication. And I think we aim to address that also in the list that we made. Yeah, also, I actually found it very interesting that Myrthe also had some recommendations, possible design recommendations for for others who are designing for people with dementia, namely in the context of these social technologies. So in a way, I think that from the several experiences of several design researchers that have been working with people with dementia, we all draw our recommendations and conclusions. So I think that's what we tried to reflect on this list. Obviously, this is not a comprehensive presentation, and the process was long and intense, as you also know. So yeah, I think not to take the whole time of the questions, I think I don't know if someone else wants to add to it, because yeah.
Yes, maybe Christine or any of the other speakers want to address that as well. Whether there are whether I think Rens's question can also be seen as asking about the links between different speakers and different contexts and contents they were talking about. If not, then I'll move to another question, which for Christine. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I can speak to the link between. I saw a very strong link between my presentation or my content and the last presentation, in terms of the museums and because what I found was that the objects had to be authentic in my work. And so the museums can also play a role in finding those objects in their storerooms, and because those objects carry memories and unlock stories. So I just really I saw that very strong link between Anna Christina and my presentation.
Thank you, Christine.
I agree that there is a very strong link, and I think there are different methods which can be applied in museums. For example, it can be object handling, but it also can be drama therapy. And I think this is the beauty of museums, because you can apply so many different methods, and you can also co-design together with people with dementia. For example, in my next research, I would like to co-design a new program together with a group of people who have been diagnosed, and I would like them to contribute in the design process. So I find it very exciting, the sites of museums, because it provides so many different options for working with people who have dementia.
Thank you, Anna Christina. And I think we can stay with you with the next question by Julia Henderson. So Julia, if you want to, you can ask your question directly to Anna Christina.
Oh, hi. I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about the art tree, memory tree art activity that you talked about. I wondered how they wrote or attached the memories to the tree, because that sounded like a really interesting activity. And I just wondered if you had any other favorite activities that worked really well.
Yes, so during the memory tree activity, they used clay, and they all made something out of clay which is meaningful for them. For example, there was one old man who made, who rolled a small ball out of the clay, and this was to represent the small world which he feels he's living in. Whereas another person made a face out of clay, and this was a caregiver. So the person with dementia felt that she would like to dedicate this piece of art to his caregiver. And I think clay is a very good material which can be used, because it allows the participants to use their fantasy. And I think another very good method which I have felt is working very well is using collage, because it is a very simple technique, but it is very good for the creativity of people with dementia, because they can use the paper to cut out shapes and to enrich the existing paintings in the collections, so the reproductions. And I felt that this type of collage technique is working very well. And I didn't mention before that after every hands-on sessions, there was also the sharing of the works they have created. And I think this is very important part of the activity, that they can all introduce to other people what they have done, and they feel that they can share their stories and they are being heard. So this is something which I would recommend to apply in all the sessions, to introduce also something that they have created. And this creates, in my opinion, also a therapeutic effect to the program, because, yes, as I said, it's very important for people who have dementia to be listened by others and to share their stories.
Thank you, Anna Christina. And thank you, Julia, for your question. Traugott, I also saw that you were commenting in the chat. Maybe you want to give a short reply or comment on the question and the answer. I think you're still on mute, Traugott.
Yeah, actually, it's not a question. I just figured it out for myself when I was thinking about working in the museums, that this is a public place where things happening, and lots of things we were talking about were happening in healthcare facilities or in the home space. And I think there is a more inclusive aspect. And I think this may be interesting to think about. So it's not only working with people with dementia, it's also working with the public audience, which can take part in everything what happens. So it's more of a loud thought I had. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Traugott. Let's continue to the next question by Gubing Wang. Please take the word and ask a question, which is directed to everyone of the speakers.
Hi, I have a question regarding stakeholder management. From Rita, explicitly mentioned about multiple stakeholders will be involved in the project. Can you hear me okay? Okay, yes. So I wonder, because we know that different stakeholders, they sometimes might have conflict values and interests, and this has been discussed a lot in other fields. And I wonder specifically in dementia care design, if there are some specific experiences and reflections that you would like to share when you encounter situations where there's a conflict in the interests among multiple stakeholders. I know that the other speakers also touched upon this issue more or less, for example, involving the informal caregivers and care workers. So that's my question.
Should I start?
Yes.
So specifically in this project Certification D, so it's still this paper that we presented is really let's say a more backstage work that involve like the project consortium. So let's say that there are not like a different stakeholder management to be addressed, or that is problematic. Is a group of work, a group of people that are working together and towards a common objective. So this is I don't think that probably this is not the point you want to make when this is something that we thought it was interesting to include in our list that will serve for evaluation and for considerations for people, for designing for people with dementia, because we think that is important in the development of products, in the design of products, to involve the several stakeholders in the process, be it the person with dementia, also their informal caregivers, and as well sometimes probably dementia care experts. Well, obviously depending on the project, there will be different kinds of stakeholders, and this is obviously sometimes might be difficult to engage the interests and to manage the interests of all the different stakeholders. I mean, in my experience, I have always worked in very small projects where the person with dementia and the dementia care workers were very supportive of the and so working on towards common goals. But sometimes what is tricky in this kind of process, I find, is that because the person with dementia might have difficulties in communicating or in communicating verbally, then many times the family or the care worker steps in and says something for the person with dementia, like they're responding instead of the person with dementia. And sometimes it's difficult. It is difficult to find really what is the voice of the person with dementia if the other ones are stepping in on what this person are trying to say. Trying to say, or their contributions. So I think this is is something that, as researchers and designers involving the different stakeholders, we need to be aware, and we need to manage the best way possible. But it's a tricky process. But probably the other speakers want to also contribute to this.
Mirte, maybe you could add something from your experience as well.
Yeah, I think I can, because like based on the study I did and I presented today, is that I like what I first want to say is that for people with dementia, I included people with dementia and the partners, and for them it was a nice activity, like the research activity I performed with them or conducted with them. For them, it was very pleasant to join. And what Rita as well also mentioned is what we asked to the partner is that they should be in the background of the activity, like only adding things the person with dementia forgot to say, but we let the person with dementia speak and give them the voice, because we used some tools and especially like visual tools that help them very much in like remembering what they were saying, or it helped them in different ways. And I think there we can be of great value as a designer to maybe reduce some conflicts, like what you mentioned in your question. But the only thing I'm still I'm curious about is, for example, what I noticed in my research and also in other research projects, is that people are getting engaged very much. And at the end of the research, you are leaving them. For example, we did this activity and that was it. And we are also evaluating prototypes, but you want to leave the prototype there because they really liked it, for example. But I think that's also an interesting question for further research, like what will we do at the end of the research activity. So that was it.
Okay, thank you, Mirte and Rita. Gubin, maybe you want to reply, or maybe some of the other speakers, Anna Christina or Christine, wants to reply. Gubin, maybe you can go first.
Thank you for your response from Rita and Marte. Yeah, so a quick reply from my side is from some literature. I see that there's a conflict between informal caregivers and people with dementia regarding a help system. So the interview is done by having a design workshop with people with dementia and their caregivers separately. And the researchers found out that people with dementia really like to use the help button because they feel it's safe. So they will use that button very often. And this caused a higher workload for the informal caregivers. So of course, the informal caregivers, they love like their family, and they understand the person with dementia needs some safety, but they themselves also need some peace. So this is a conflict that I find, and I think this could be reconciled by looking at the threshold between the safety of the person with dementia and the workload of the informal caregivers. And maybe it needs to be personalized for different families. So yeah, that's my response.
Okay, thank you for your question. And also thank you, Mirte and Rita, for your comments. I'm see that we're already a bit over time, so I'm going to need to close off the session as we were asked to make sure that everything stays within time. Before I will leave, I first want to tell you or remind you about the upcoming events of next week. So the upcoming events, there are still some workshops, there are some presentations and talks as well. But first on Monday is a Q&A with the movie maker Ruud Lensen, who has made a documentary about the dementia process of his father. And the documentary is called Lost in Memories, which you should all have a link and a password to view the documentary online. I can highly recommend watching the documentary. It's a really valuable document, in my opinion. So please, if you have time, and I see that Kaylee is also posting the link and the link for the watching the documentary, and also the link for the Q&A that will happen on Monday. So please all join in that, because I think it might be an interesting talk after you've watched this this documentary. It's a weekend coming up, so please use that time to watch it. And then other things I want to talk about. Of course, I also want to thank all the presenters who have presented their work, who talked about their valuable and interesting work, and all of you as well to be here with us and start a discussion. Do not end the discussion here. The conference proceedings will be published, and you can also look up everyone's address or everyone's contact details or website. So please, maybe you could contact them afterwards, and after reading their stories or re-watching the stories you've heard before here. Then I also want to remind you about the fact that we are making a zine or zine. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. At least it would be a kind of a magazine, I would say. So there's a lot of these elements, like, for example, the comments and questions from chat that will be included in this. There's also a collaborative magazine making workshop on Tuesdays. Check the schedule for that. So, and you're all invited to share and to share the making of that workshop. And there's also a possibility to purchase a print copy of that magazine, and the same way as you bought your tickets. So please have a look at that. So, and of course, Kaylee's here, so she can immediately send in every link for this. So have a look at that. Have a look at the program of next week. Dementia Lab is still continuing next week. And for now, have a good day and enjoy your weekend. And thanks for joining in this session.